Alright guys, in this video, which I wasn't actually planning on making, but I feel as though it is something I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about, we're going over some information that is coming out about the PlayStation 5 that I don't necessarily want to sit here and say that it's not real or these people making these claims are making stuff up because I don't know. I mean, because I'm excited for the PlayStation 5 and because it seems like it's going to be an awesome console to me, instinctively I want to be like, no, there's no way any of this is true. What I really want to do is kind of just go past that and get down to the core of what I think people are not understanding. And I think a lot of people are missing the point here. The big point when it comes to why people buy consoles, more specifically, why people buy PlayStation consoles. So we have two reports here. This one over here coming from PlayStation Universe. Um, I don't know what's up with this. I don't know if they're talking about something that we kind of already went over because it mentions Dusk Golem again. They almost make it seem like he said something else. Says fresh claims from noted insider, and they're saying fresh claims. So I'm assuming this is recent. This is separate from the other, ridiculous rumor we went over regarding Resident Evil 8 with the PS5. But they're saying fresh rumors from noted insider Dusk Golem suggest the PS5 will struggle with 4K games, and as such, players should expect a lot of fake 4K rendering. Responding to someone on Twitter regarding the performance of the PS5 when running the RE engine, he claimed that the Xbox Series X doesn't encounter the same problem as Sony's console when it comes to 4K. I've heard from other devs that PS5 struggles with 4K games in particular, so you'll see a lot of fake 4K. That doesn't matter to some, but get ready for that too. Xbox Series X doesn't have the same problem. So this is the first report that came out today, and I'm like, okay, I mean, that's fine. It makes sense to me when you think about the Xbox Series X. I'm going to be real right now with you. It needs this advantage. It absolutely needs this advantage because as far as I can see, the Xbox Series X has basically nothing going for it aside from, backwards compatibility, which is nice. But let's be real, that's not why somebody's going to go out there and buy a $500 next-gen console. It's not going to be for backwards compatibility, especially when you can already get that with the Xbox One. The only thing the Xbox Series X has going for it right now is that power advantage. And I've been, trying to let people know that this is something it needs. It really does. And considering how much Microsoft and its, Xbox fans have been talking about the 12 T-flops and the power, and it's going to be so noticeable and everything. Look, I would expect that, right? I feel like that's the least you can expect from the Xbox Series X if you are somebody who is still going to go out there and buy it, especially after this Halo delay, right? The least you should expect is, well, at least I can anticipate that some, or maybe most, maybe even all third-party games will run or look a little bit better than they do on the PS5. I mean, let's be honest, guys. That's the only thing going for the Series X right now. So I'm not really going to fight so much against that. When it comes to Dusk Golem, look, it is what it is. He may be truthful. He may just be making stuff up. I've had people tell me that he's just trying to get attention. I don't know. I'm not trying to cause problems with anybody because, frankly, I don't care. But I'm just saying, look, what he's saying, fake 4K, so you're telling me this is another PS4 Pro, Xbox One X situation again? Okay, I guess, but I'm pretty sure the difference in power, percentage-wise anyway, between the PS5 and the Xbox Series X is actually much less significant than that of the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, and we all saw how that situation played out. There's a reason why Sony sold more PS4 Pros than Microsoft did the Xbox One X, and let me tell you, it's not because of resolutions and frame rates and whatever, and power and T-flops. That's not why the PS4 Pro and the PS4 in general is as successful as it is. But we have a second report here, and this is the one that really just kind of made me say, you know what, I got to make this video because this is just getting ridiculous. And I can only assume it's going to continue. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to damage control here because, as I said, especially from this source, because this is actually coming from Jeff Grubb here. He's known to be, very credible and correct. And so this isn't so much about me trying to damage control. It's more like I think people are going to take this and run with it and make it seem like it's something that's way worse than it actually is. And in reality, I just need to kind of plant people's feet firmly on the ground when it comes to something like this. And again, explain to you that while the PlayStation 5, it could be possible that a lot of third-party games will be fake 4K, whatever. But I'm telling you right now, it's not going to matter to pretty much anybody except the really hardcore small audience that really cares about, I need the most powerful next-gen console, right? So anyway, it goes on to say, on the most recent episode of the Basement Radio Arcade podcast, noted insider Jeff Grubb hinted that developers are having trouble with the PS5's variable frequency approach and warned that gamers may be disappointed by some major third-party titles. The technology that Sony's using for the PS5 is AMD Smart Shift, and a lot of people are just assuming the PS5 is going to be right there with the Xbox Series X, and it may be. I don't know for sure. I'm not a developer. Important to note, this isn't coming from a developer, but the Smart Shift technology is worrisome, I think. What it does is it moves power between the CPU and the GPU, and developers really haven't had to worry about that, especially on consoles in the past. This could, at launch at least, prove troublesome to the point where you could start getting stories from Digital Foundry or whatever saying, the PS5 version is actually kind of whack. Yeah, because I'm sure that's what Digital Foundry is going to say. They're just going to say it's whack. That will get cleared up over time. Developers will figure it out. Sony will figure it out and explain to developers, here's what to do. But my understanding is they're not doing that yet, and that's the issue. So you go into launch and people could be disappointed with like Madden, NBA 2K, Call of Duty. That could leave a bad taste in people's mouths. So there's a lot of interesting things that he's saying here. The first thing we have to point out is he does say he's not a developer, so he doesn't really know. He's basically trying to say that this is what he's been hearing, and it sounds like he's been hearing that developers are having a little bit of an issue figuring out how to properly utilize the Smart Shift technology or wrap their heads around it, and apparently it may be causing them some issues or whatnot. I don't know if there's truth to this, obviously, but he does say something interesting here. I think the most revealing thing he says is that right now, it's something that Sony will figure out. He's almost making it seem like Sony doesn't even know, which sounds weird to me. He's making it sound as though developers don't know because Sony didn't tell them. Like, that's what he's basically saying here in this section of the quote, where he's making it seem as though developers are confused and don't understand, and they're waiting for Sony to explain it to them and teach them, and Sony hasn't done that yet. Maybe there's a very specific reason for that. It could be because, and this is just me speculating off the top of my head, if this is true, the reason why may be because there's some stuff in there that Sony doesn't want to get out yet, that they want to talk about themselves, and then after they do that, they'll gladly talk to developers and give them more info or help them with whatever they may need. But this is just so weird to me. Like, I don't understand this, right? Because, look, we're not hearing this from developers. And I do want to acknowledge that, yes, it is very true that developers, it's in their best interest not to come out and say things like this, even if it is true. Even if developers are having this type of issue, because of their partnership and relationship they have with Sony as a platform holder, they do not want to anger Sony, right? Especially because they're the market leader. It's in their best interest to just keep their mouths shut, honestly, as ridiculous as it may sound, and just, put their nose to the grindstone and figure out how can we fix this or work it out. You know what I mean? That's in the developer's best interest. So that's why I'm not completely discounting this or making it seem as though there's no truth to this, because there might be. But here is the big question, and there's something else I have to say after I ask this question. He mentions games like Madden, NBA 2K, Call of Duty, and he does make it clear that even if this is a problem right now, it's likely not going to be a problem going into the future, into 2021 and 2022. The big question is this the only difference we're going to see? Developers are having such a struggle that the only real difference we're going to see is essentially the same difference we saw with the PS4 Pro and the One X, where some games, some third-party games on the PlayStation 5 will be rendered at a fake 4K or not actually native 4K, maybe utilizes some type of checkerboard rendering technique. We did hear recently that Sony is apparently experimenting with DLSS 2.0 like technology, which would essentially make it so that developers don't have to actually strive for a native 4K resolution, but yet they can allow their games to look just as good as it would with native 4K, and you literally can't see the difference. Maybe that's something, but the big question is, will it really matter? Honestly, will it matter? Will it really be as bad as these individuals such as Dust Golem and Jeff Grubb are trying to make it seem like it will be? Granted, Jeff Grubb isn't making it sound like it's that bad compared to Dust Golem, but you also hear this from a lot of the Xbox fanboys where they're like, you just wait. You wait till you see that performance delta, and it's just like, really though? Like, is it going to be all that? Better question, even if there is a difference, how many people are actually going to care? How many people are going to notice without watching those Digital Foundry videos zoomed in all the way? Because the only thing I'm getting here from this, okay, and I'm just going to cut through it. The only thing I seem to be getting from Dust Golem and Jeff Grubb is they're trying to make it sound like they're giving some type of insane warning, like, just be careful, guys. Some games, some third-party games might not be native 4K. Like, that's it. That's the big scary thing about the PS5, and developers are having such a struggle. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we see like 1080p games, that's a massive issue. That's absolutely unacceptable. And hopefully I can't imagine it's anything like that, right? But if you're telling me the worst thing is some third-party titles may not be native 4K because developers are still figuring out exactly how to properly work with the AMD Smart Shift technology built into the PS5. Okay, I'm not going to freak out if Call of Duty Black Ops, whatever it's called, that's coming out, is native 4K on the Series X and slightly below that on the PS5. Like, I'm not going to care, and I'm not even going to notice. Same goes for all these other third-party titles. Now, if it's a lingering issue, maybe in the long run that could be a problem. But look, to finish off this video, because I don't want to just continue to sit here and rant, but this is annoying me for a couple of reasons. It's annoying me because this completely disregards why people buy consoles in the first place. More specifically, why people buy PlayStations. I want to remind you that the PS3, according to most developers, was an absolute nightmare to work with, and it took them a very long time to wrap their heads around it and really figure out how to, make their games look and run great on that platform. Okay, and the 360 was off to a dominant start, but yet somehow in the end, the PlayStation 3 ended up outselling the 360, and it's still just, what it was. People still ended up going out there and buying PS3s, millions, in the millions, right? Like a console that everything just wasn't going right for it. It was a development nightmare, and yet it still came out on top. I'm not saying the PS5 is anywhere near that. In fact, it seems the complete opposite. It seems like the PS5, from what we've heard, again, this is why I'm confused, is the easiest console to develop for, right? That's just what we've been hearing. It just goes to show that people don't care. Okay, that's the point. People don't care. When people walk into a store and they have to decide between buying a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, or if they go online and they're comparing the two, there's very, very few people who are making their purchasing decision based off of, apparently the Series X is going to have a slightly higher resolution. And I know there's going to be people who are going to be like, well, what about with the Xbox One and the PS4? Don't you remember it was 1080p versus 900p? It's worth noting, and I'm not trying to say it mattered then and it doesn't matter now, but you do need to understand that you can visibly, very clearly see a massive difference between 720p and 1080p and 900p and 1080p. The lower the resolution, the more noticeable it is, the more easy it is for the naked eye to actually see that right in front of them. To whereas when you start to get into these higher resolutions, you're talking about native 4K versus like checkerboard 4K, it's much more difficult to actually notice that without zooming in. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand. That's why people were so much harder on the Xbox One not being able to do 1080p. And when some games were actually running at 720p, yeah, that's not good. That would basically be the equivalent as us finding out that some third-party games are actually going to run at 1080p on the PS5. That's essentially what that's equivalent to, which is unacceptable, and people should freak out about that. But that's not going to happen. At least that's not what I'm anticipating. People go out and they buy a PlayStation console because of the games, because they know the promise of games is there. Because especially now, that's where their library is. That's where their friends are. So this is just, in my opinion, a non-issue. I mean, unless it's more serious than these guys are letting on, right? Like, you know, Dust Golem was saying, I had somebody actually tell me that Dust Golem was actually lying, and I don't know if this is true, but the version of Resident Evil 8 he was talking about was not the PS5 version struggling to hit 1080p 60 frames. It was actually the PS4 Pro version and has since been canceled. That's what somebody told me. Now, I don't know if they're an insider or if they have sources. They didn't say, and I didn't ask, but that's what I was told. And to me, that's like, you know, that does make a hell of a lot more sense than the PS5 struggling to run a game at 1080p 60. So, yeah, guys, look, the whole point of me making this video is I just want to kind of call out this crap, honestly, and let you know, like, yeah, it's something we should be paying attention to. And frankly, if there are some really concerning things behind the scenes when it comes to development with the PlayStation 5, some serious issues third-party devs might be having, I would like to know about them. But to me, this, again, it's just reading as fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I haven't been hearing this, and I haven't been hearing anything major when it comes to the PS5 and what it's going to be capable of doing. And even reading, you know, between the lines with this stuff, it seems very clear to me that the only difference we may end up seeing is a slight resolution difference. Now, if it's a dramatic resolution difference, then we'll have a conversation about that. But even then, that's not why we buy PlayStations. That's not, you know, that's not what gets us most excited. For the people who really care that much, yes, go out there and buy a Series X and, you know, feel comfort in the fact that you will probably have, you should have, since it's the more powerful console, the better versions of third-party games, okay? If that's what you care about most, then more power to you, but I'm just trying to explain that this is basically a non-issue, as some of these articles are trying to make it seem, and not just the articles, but the people who are going to run with this, as if this is Sony coming out confirming they're having severe issues. It's a non-issue, okay? Most people are not going to care, and 90% of people aren't even going to notice. Now, I want to let you know that if we do get updates in the future and it turns out it's much more serious than I'm letting on or that I'm, you know, believing it to be, we will talk about that. But I'm just pointing this out that I'm not seeing anything here that's that serious. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. Again, I wasn't planning on releasing this today, but I had to rant a little bit, so I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already, hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.